The tactical lights flashed red across the master grid. Counselor VTH stood on the command deck of the flagship, watching the wide view screen as the strange vessel glided toward the edge of the sector. The Imperial Vanguard sat completely still in its wake. Admiral Roth stood next to her, his hand resting on the metal edge of his terminal. He did not issue a pursuit command. He did not order the heavy batteries to lock on. The data on his screen had already run the math, and the math was absolute. The entire defense grid was useless. VTH tapped her slate-gray data pad, locking the recorded telemetry into an encrypted file. The single ship they had spent 12 hours tracking was officially registered by Human Naval Command as a minor light patrol unit. It was an outsider, a basic scout sent ahead to check the lines. The real cruisers and capital battleships remained hidden back in the deep dark, completely unseen. You will want to see what happened when the calculations updated. Stay on this frequency. 12 hours earlier, a loud mechanical chime broke the quiet on Relay Station 4. Admiral Roth shifted in his leather seat, his eyes tracking a single green dot that had just crossed the outer perimeter line. The vessel had bypassed the standard entry gates entirely. It moved at a steady speed, broadcasting no distress codes and asking for no permission to enter the neutral lane. Roth adjusted the sensor array to get a clearer view. "Run a full diagnostic scan on that hull," he commanded, his voice sharp in the small room. It did not drop out of warp where the trade log said it should. First Officer Dean pulled up the structural tracking grids, his fingers tapping the glass console. The display lines flickered twice, trying to map the silhouette. The hull shapes did not match any military design in the Imperial Ledger. The thick armor plates were dense, packed tight around a central core that absorbed the radar sweeps rather than bouncing them back. "The scan is stuck on the reactor signature," Dean said, looking up with a frown. "The power readings are jumping every 3 seconds, but the ship is not accelerating. It is holding a perfect line." Roth exhaled sharply through his nose, a habit that always showed his crew he was unsettled. He stepped toward the secondary screen to read the raw numbers himself. The automated system had finally managed to count the life signs inside the pressurized decks. The number was small. Exactly 41 operators were running the entire vessel. "That size should require a crew of 400 to maintain baseline pressure," Dean whispered, his face turning pale under the green console light. "There are no automated drone signatures, just 41 humans." "Open a direct visual channel," Roth said. He pulled his uniform jacket straight and faced the primary communications pickup. "Let us see who is steering a ghost ship into our territory." The screen blinked, cutting through the cosmic static. A dark-haired officer appeared on the display, sitting casually in a plain chair with a slate-gray data pad resting flat across her knee. She looked young, her uniform bearing the simple silver bars of a captain. She did not salute, and she did not look at the weapons matrix currently painting her hull. "This is Captain Ara of the human vessel Vanguard," she said levelly. Her voice was steady, missing the formal titles the Empire required for border talks. "You are broadcasting on an emergency military band, Admiral. You have crossed into a restricted defense lane without submitting a flight plan," Roth stated. He pointed to the tactical map behind him. "Your current route violates the disarmament codes signed by the regional sectors." Ara did not shift her posture. She tapped her data pad once, and the hum of her ship's internal drives grew slightly louder over the audio link. "Humanity never signed those documents," she replied. "Your alliance decided we were too small to invite to the council tables when the borders were drawn. The lane is neutral ground. Your hull is carrying 4 times the legal weight of heavy plasma arrays for a ship of that length," Roth said, leaning forward. "That is a declaration of intent. Lower your shields and prepare for an inspection crew." "We designed our frames around entirely different assumptions," Ara said. She looked directly into the camera, her eyes completely calm. We do not carry extra crews to man manual stations. The 41 people on this boat do not look for a fight, but they do not step aside either. Our history taught us what happens when we rely on your laws. The Dreth expansion campaign ended 30 cycles ago, Roth said, his hand tightening on the edge of his desk. The galaxy has rules now. The Dreth burned our outer colonies while your council watched and took notes, Ara said. Her voice dropped, turning cold and flat. We rebuilt our entire navy so we would never have to ask for your help again. What you see on your scanner is just the answer to that lesson. You are one ship against 7 frontline vanguards, Roth warned. My crew has already locked their firing paths. What you do not see is the other answers, Ara said. She picked up her data pad, her fingers sliding across the gray surface. I imagine it feels like standing in front of something very large and realizing too late that you cannot see all of it. Have a safe watch, Admiral. The screen went black as she terminated the connection. The green dot on the tracking grid did not alter its speed. It continued along its path, heading straight past the Imperial warships that hovered frozen in the dark. Sir, the targeting matrix just lost its lock, Dean reported, his voice cracking as he hit the reset command. The human ship did not fire a countermeasure. Our sensors are simply refusing to recognize the hull as a valid target. Before Roth could issue a manual override, a high-priority encryption drive spun up at the rear console. The red emergency light flashed, overriding the local bridge controls. Senior Admiral Voss appeared on the secure screen from Western Command Hub, his face tight with anger. Roth, drop your weapons lock immediately, Voss commanded. The background behind the senior officer was filled with the sound of alarms and shouting technicians. Pull your vanguard back to Relay Station 4. Do not engage that vessel. Sir, they are violating the border treaty, Roth said, stepping closer to the secure terminal. We have the tactical advantage. You have nothing, Voss snapped, cutting him off. Our deep space arrays just picked up the secondary gravity wakes behind that scout. The telemetry we are receiving from their home sectors shows ship hulls 3 kilometers long moving along the ridge. If you fire on that patrol boat, the response will clear this sector off the map before your shells hit their shields. Roth stood entirely still, the words washing over him in the silence of the bridge. He looked back at the main display. The human ship was clearing the final marker of the neutral corridor, its engine glow leaving a faint blue trail across the static. Understood, Command, Roth said quietly. We are standing down. The visual link faded. Counselor VTH walked onto the deck from the lower transit lift, her hands clasped rigidly behind her spine. She gave a short, sharp nod as she approached Roth's station, her clinical demeanor showing the weight of the files she had just retrieved from the secret council archives. The High Council has already moved the raw telemetry behind maximum security walls, VTH said, her voice dropping to a whisper so the junior technicians could not hear. They are going to scrub the record of this encounter from the public logs. To avoid panic, Roth stated, not looking away from the empty tracking grid. To save the Alliance, VTH corrected. If the citizen worlds realize our frontline ships are obsolete compared to a human light-class patrol vessel, the treaty system collapses by morning. We are going to pretend this day never happened. Roth turned back to his terminal and opened his official ledger. He began typing the final operations report, his fingers hitting the keys with slow, deliberate movements. He did not include the Council's fears or the details of the colossal ships moving in the deep dark. He simply recorded the time, the coordinates, and the path of the ship that had crossed their space without asking. He looked down at his own desk, where a blank slate-gray data pad lay flat under the terminal light. The tool looked small and ordinary, but the image of the human captain balancing a similar device on her knee remained burned into his thoughts. It was no longer just a piece of plastic and wire. It was a marker of an entirely different tier of survival, a sign of a people who had looked into the void after a war and redesigned their world mathematically. The green sensor dot crossed the final boundary line on the long-range map, disappearing into the dark space where the Imperial charts ended. The tracking screen returned to its regular pattern of empty grid lines and drifting dust. Humanity does not need us to be afraid of them. They only need us to be honest with ourselves about what the scan showed. The fear arrives on its own. The final green marker faded completely from the outer edge of the display. The glass turned smooth and black, reflecting only the low light of the console. Roth closed the ledger file, picked up his data pad, and walked out into the quiet corridor.